Strong yesterday on the borders issue and very strong this morning with Ben Fordham and Neil Mitchell and again in the Parliament. But the language on the radio was quite strong when it comes to rallies and those that might attend at the weekend.
Yeah, he wants to shut protests down and open borders up, doesn't he, Scott Morrison? So the strongest language that he's had on both these issues this morning and yesterday. Now, the federal fear around Queensland and the border is around the fact that they believe the Queensland Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, will open the borders in July, but crucially it will be after the school holidays. And that will cost in terms of economic activity. We heard Anastasia Palaszczuk say today we're on the same page, it'll be in July, but it's a question of what end of July that's really important here in terms of the Queensland and Australian economy. In terms of restrictions generally, my understanding is after National Cabinet, the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian will look to ease the restrictions around funeral numbers, those who can attend funerals in her state, and that will be a relief for the PM because he's been concerned about the inconsistency of the protests against the cruel limit that he sees on people who can attend funerals. Anyway, look, the scene is set for angry clashes between protesters and police, with the PM saying today that protesters should be charged and a protester in Melbourne, we know, being found to have COVID-19. Not a great look for Labor that 4 of their MPs attended these rallies against medical advice. Let's hear the strong language now from Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg on the protests and the borders.
While I think people were respectful of the issue that was being raised broadly, I think the double standard that they allowed themselves to perpetrate by turning up has offended, rightly, I think, Australians right across the country. There's no disagreement about the importance of the issue that they were talking about, but you know, the way that was done and the suggestion that they might do it again I think, risks public support for even the issue they raise.
I am getting a bit frustrated with it. The Step 3 process would see interstate borders, interstate travel, I should say, happening in July. That was the timetable that was agreed. And so what I would like Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia and Tasmania to do is to nominate the date that those borders will be open in July.
Well, the biggest carrot is jobs. And we know how important job creation and getting people back to work is to not just the Prime Minister, but also to those state premiers and to those chief ministers. So they have a big stake in the outcome of our success on the economic front. And they know how important it is to lift those restrictions on the borders to get people back to work.
Now, politically, Scott Morrison cannot go hard enough on this protest issue because the public are behind him on it. I don't think there's any doubt, Kieran, that we'll see arrests in the next couple of days. Certainly in New South Wales, that's the police intention. They are going to arrest people who go to these protests.
And let's look at the message from the Prime Minister when it comes to the rallies. It is very clear, don't go.
It was. He said it in Parliament again, and he sought to wedge Anthony Albanese, I thought, here, because he said, I'm sure everyone in this chamber would agree. And, of course, we know some Labor members actually attended. Have a listen.
When it comes to the issue of gatherings and protests, the health advice says it put other Australians' lives at risk, including, in particular, Indigenous lives. And I'm sure the Leader of the Opposition would agree with me in saying, do not go to those rallies. Do not go to those rallies. You are putting others' lives at risk. The issue you raise is important and it is understood and acknowledged, I believe, by all in this chamber. That is a great reflection on this country.
The PM in the question time this afternoon. And the politics was getting back to its, fierce, normal self, wasn't it?